Do you let life's smaller issues weigh on your mind? Are the sleeping pills fighting a losing battle with that hit and run a few years back? Well, all I can say is I empathise with you, and while this video won't bring back that family of four, it's about an equally violent car crash of a film. Today, we'll be taking a look at the movie Eragon. Eragon? Eragon, a delightful movie starring that guy from You with John Malkovich as the bad guy, but trust me, we'll get to that in a second. Seeing as this is technically a review, I'll start off by saying I actually liked parts of this film, and having read the book as a kid, some of it was familiar to me already. Besides the notable score, these parts mostly consist of the film's goofy charm, which is especially brought out by the fact that the film takes itself very seriously. More How to Train Your Dragon than Lord of the Rings, watching this movie was often a clashing of tones. It clearly saw itself as cut from Tolkien's cloth, but it doesn't require a hardened critic to dispel this immediately. Take the opening of the film for example. In the first 2 minutes, it already reuses footage 20 seconds apart, which didn't fill me with hope this would be a cult classic. We're given a lot of exposition about the film through narration over some action and decent CGI, which fills us in about the state of Alagaësia, the world in which the movie is set, and establishes Galbatorix as the king and big bad of the film. Our first real action is a high-speed pursuit through the forest on horseback between Arya and some of the king's henchmen looking to retrieve a stone she has stolen from Galbatorix himself. Now, I'm not going to be meticulously breaking down every scene, but all of this sort of builds up to the first immediately goofy moment of the film. John Malkovich effectively seals himself as the greatest actor of all time with this incredible line delivery.
I suffer without my stone. Do not prolong my suffering.
I don't know if it's the writing, how he says it, or a combination of both, but this ruined his character entirely for me, and they do not do a good job of redeeming him.
The job falls upon you, Durza, to remind those who resist my rule that as long as I am king, disloyalty will be punishable by death.
So, Arya gets dogged out by some widows in the woods, which sees her cast this stone away from the battle after being confronted by head honcho and Rizzler-in-Chief, Durza. This interrupts our main character Eragon, who's hunting in the woods when a giant molten stone incinerates the deer he's aiming at. According to my sources, John Malkovich actually stipulates the atomization of at least one woodland creature on every film he's in. Eragon takes the stone, which lo and behold is a dragon egg that hatches in his stable. Unperturbed by this literally miraculous event, he begins befriending the dragon right away. After Brom, a character we met in the beginning having trouble with some guards in Eragon's village, tells the tavern tall tales of dragon riders, Eragon decides to do a test flight. Bringing his dragon to a field and giving her a run-up, he briefly thinks she has flown away, but she returns literally 10 seconds later, fully grown. This of course is 100% true to the source material and was not made up for time purposes. And before I go any further, I just wanted to talk about the weird, creepy dynamic between these two after this scene takes place. In the book, their bond develops as Eragon looks after Saphira while she grows, but here the movie skips that, so this completely inexplicable one-sided relationship forms in the film, with Saphira acting like there's this unbreakable bond between the two as she blurs the lines between a mothering protective figure and a naggy girlfriend. It's really strange. Another thing is that throughout this film, it's established that the two of them communicate telepathically, but it's unclear whether anyone else can ever hear Saphira because there are moments where it seems as though she's having fully fledged conversations with people, but others when things like instructions are directed towards Eragon intended for Saphira. Anyway, so, after this, Eragon briefly visits Brom's house and we find out Brom was a dragon rider, but on his way back he encounters some of these weird predator ripoffs that Durza spawned in. Despite not being able to speak, they interrogate a butcher in the village who squeals immediately. Saphira tries to save Eragon by taking him from the village before he can warn his uncle, and for some reason starts beefing him when he can't fly a fucking dragon. Turns out he was too late and his uncle gets killed. This leads to Eragon telling Saphira to leave him alone, which she does. Brom saves Eragon from the farm before the attackers can kill him and helpfully provides an impromptu cremation service.
What are you doing? Funeral fit for a king.
Now, the main section of this film doesn't really have any moments I want to talk about in depth and serves to prepare Eragon for the climactic battle at the end. He trains with Brom, learns to work with Saphira, and meets the resistance fighters called the Varden. One thing I will talk about is the use of magic in this film. I know I said I read the book, but one thing I forgot was the spell for fire which they used throughout this movie. The only thing I could think of anytime it was used was Bazinga! And that's not the film's fault, but it just ruined all the battles where it's used. They also kind of blur what the spell does, because we got told it was the magic word for fire, but later it just kind of does anything. There's this whole thing with saving the girl Arya from the start of the film and getting her to the Varden because she's poisoned, but it isn't very interesting, so I'm going to skip over it. The ending battle showcases what the film thinks of itself because the entire thing is literally a discount Helm's Deep. Galbatorix never actually shows up to the main battle, and instead the de facto big bad is Durza, who's defeated with the help of Eragon's immaculate flow.
Into the sky! To win or die!
Before this battle, I actually made a nice comment about the film, saying that Saphira's armor looked sick, but then she doesn't wear it in the battle and instead sports this weird silver shit that is nowhere near as awesome. By the time the battle finishes, Eragon says his goodbye to Arya, who travels back to the homeland of the Elves, Ellesmere, and in one of the greatest movie endings I've ever seen, we check back in with Galbatorix, who reveals his dragon to the audience. I find it absolutely hilarious that they ever thought that not only would audiences respond well to this film, but would also be clamouring for a sequel. This is made even funnier by the fact that the fans of the book series to this day deny tooth and nail that an Eragon film was ever made. This film is so bad, they've repressed all memory of it. So that is the Eragon film. My thoughts? Trash. It can be harmless fun at times, and I imagine there are a few people out there who would vehemently defend it, but quite frankly it was more funny than captivating, but unintentionally so. I will rate it 4 atomized ears out of 10. If you disagree with any of the points I made in this video, or you actually like the Eragon film, please by all means scold me in the comments. I promise I will put them through an AI sound-alike of John Malkovich for that menacing villain feel. Thank you all for watching the video, and stay greasy, friends.
I'm sorry, little kids, but I'm a killer clown today.
Into the sky to win or die.